Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name's Justin. So if you review musical instruments or equipment on YouTube, whether or not you review, drum sets like me or guitars or keyboards, you'll eventually realize there's a massive convention that happens every single year in California. It's called NAMM. The one in California definitely is worth your time to go to if you review stuff on YouTube and if you make money from doing reviews on YouTube. If you can make enough videos while you're there, you will actually make all your money back. You'll get a lot of views, and it could kickstart your channel a little bit, especially because you can play every single instrument in the category of instruments that you review all at once. Okay, so tip number one, decide why you're going to NAMM in the first place. Some people go to NAMM just to hang out with YouTuber friends, get industry connections, and just enjoy warm weather in the middle of winter, because California is always warm and there's always palm trees. But then there's the other kind of person like me, where I go to NAMM for the express purpose of making as many videos as humanly possible and playing as many drum sets as humanly possible. Deciding whether or not you're here to network or if you're here to make a ton of videos, that decision right up front will really determine all of your strategies from here on out. Okay, so tip number two is to decide whether or not you're going to be doing talking head footage at the booth that you're covering. Let's say, for example, you're at the Zildjian booth. It's a cymbal booth if you're not a drummer. And you have to decide whether or not you're going to make a video of yourself playing the cymbal that you're reviewing and then saying, I like this about the cymbal, I don't like that about the cymbal. You're making a first impression style video. You can either decide to do the talking bit at your house, at your home studio, or you can do it right there at the showroom floor. It's a big decision that has consequences, so let me give you the pros and cons. If you decide to do footage of yourself standing there talking about what you like and didn't like about the product at the booth, the pros is that number one, you can churn out more videos because you got the B-roll, you got the footage of you playing the instruments, and you got the talking head footage. That's all you need. You can cut a video that very night at your hotel room and upload that sucker right away. The downside is the owner of the company, or at least the manager of the company or a salesman, will be watching you as you're saying all this stuff. And you might not feel safe to talk about the stuff you didn't like. You might not go quite as hard at the company. You might pull your punches. Not that we're attacking the companies we're reviewing. I'm just saying it's a little bit weird to say, I didn't like this about this thing, when the owner of the company, if it's a small booth, is literally watching you saying all this stuff. It's a little weird. Also, you're not going to talk that well right off the dome when you've only used the product for 5 minutes. You'll basically make a better video if you do the talking head footage at your home studio when you've had a chance to sleep on it, research the extra specifications, and you really have a better grasp of what you actually think about it. Plus, this means you don't have to buy a nice fancy lapel or a nice microphone because you're not interviewing yourself right there on the spot. You're not talking to the person that runs the company and asking them questions. I don't really like that. I feel like music stores are the companies that really should do interviews with the owner of the company because it's a sales video. If you're doing a review video like me, you don't really care what the owner of the company has to say as much. You care more about the gear and try to be less biased in your video. So you just kind of go off your perception, not the perception of the person that designed the product in the first place. Okay, so tip number three is be aware that you need to save up roughly $1,000 for this trip, and possibly more, depending on how many days that you stay and how much food that you order out and all that sort of stuff, if you want to go partying afterwards. I don't do that, and I have other ways of minimizing costs, so I only spend maybe $1,000 on the trip, but it's very easy to accidentally spend $2,000 if you're not careful. So just be aware you have to save that money ahead of time, especially because the hotels kind of want you to pay in advance sometimes in order to get the lowest possible rate. Basically, what this means is that because this is an expensive trip, you need to make sure that you're always moving on the showroom floor, making as many videos as possible so you can get that AdSense running and basically cover the cost of the trip. Tip number four is make sure you get a media badge. This shouldn't be a problem for most people. Just make sure that you check mark on the website questionnaire that you are with the press or that you're an influencer or whatever. You're a reviewer. If you check off that stuff, you'll get a press badge. The reason why I say you need this badge is that at least one time in 1 year, they said that I couldn't bring in a camera unless I was with the press. And I had the press badge. And I don't know if that rule carries over from year to year because who knows what is in the minds of the people that organize NAMM. It's a big complicated thing and rules change all the time. But at least one time, if I didn't have a press badge, I couldn't bring in a camera. And I thought that was weird and I thought you should know. Okay, so tip number four is make sure that if you're going to NAMM, the moment you're accepted and they give you the badge over email, make sure that that day you get your hotel and your plane ticket. because that's the cheapest those rates will ever be. The closer you get to the day of the event, the higher the prices of the plane ticket and the hotel rooms. So you will save money if you get your butt moving. Also, in the same vein, triple check your dates before you buy anything. One time, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I bought the correct days for a hotel room, but in the wrong month. And I was wondering how I saved so much money on this hotel stay. Well, it turns out I bought the correct days in the wrong month, and it was this big hairy mess. I just gotten there from the airplane, and they didn't have a room for me under my name. So make sure you got the correct dates, or else it could bite you in the butt. Okay, so tip number 7, this is just my personal preference. I feel like the sweet spot is to go to NAMM for 2 days. The reason why I say this is that 2 days is enough time for you to go over the entire convention center twice, go to all the booths that you want to go to, and really get the vibes of what's going on in the industry and talk to a bunch of people, and also save some money at the same time. Because by day number 3, you're just picking up the remnants, trying to check things out that you somehow missed over the previous 2 days. And are you really going to make hundreds of dollars of extra revenue on day 3 that will justify you paying all that extra money for extra Uber rides, extra food, that extra day of the hotel stay? For a lot of smaller channels like mine or medium-sized channel like mine, probably you won't make that money back. So 2 days is the sweet spot in my opinion. Okay, so the next couple of tips go together. Make sure that you plan out your backpack very carefully. This is going to be your survival backpack. Imagine that NAMM is the jungle and everything you need has to be in your backpack at all times. Of course, what you need in your backpack depends on what kind of content you make. But for me, what I need at all times is a camera. I need to bring myself my audio interface with a battery for that, lots of extra batteries for my camera. I also need to make sure that I've got all the cables and adapters I could ever possibly need. That means I need to be able to record via 1/8 inch, XLR, and 1/4 inch. I need to cover all 3 of those bases in order to be safe. And that's just something that you need to plan for. There have been times when I didn't have the right equipment and it bit me in the butt and made me embarrassed in front of companies that I kind of wanted to impress. And especially bring more batteries than you think you might need. And I really recommend these USB-C power banks. Make it so that no matter what happens, you're ready. Tip number 11, make sure that you bring yourself some comfortable shoes. There have been times where, or at least one time, I got to about 20,000 steps. This is a combination of me running around a lot that particular day at NAMM and also walking from my hotel. So just make sure that your shoes are comfortable, otherwise your legs will hate you at the end of the day. So tip number 12 is make sure you bring yourself some business cards. Now, they don't have to be professional ones that you got from a website for $300. You can print some off at home, which is what I do. You don't have to do this, but the reason why I recommend it is that you're going to run into a lot of older industry veterans that run these companies. And because they're older guys, they rely on business cards. It's just what they do. Also, it helps them and you remember each other. Because let's be honest, just because I have a YouTube channel doesn't remember that they'll remember they were talking to Justin from 65 Drums. It's just nice to have a physical representation that I talked to somebody, he was interesting, and oh, there's his website, there's his email address. If I want to send him a product so he can make a review, I'm good to go. So having a business card as a YouTuber can be useful. Okay, so the next couple of tips revolve around my strategies on what I do for day 1 and day 2. So in day 1, the first thing I do is I hit up the big booths first. The reason why I do this is that they are mission critical. I need to make sure that I'm covering the products from the companies that most of my viewers want to know about. And viewers want to know about the big companies. The reason why companies are big in the first place is because they have a lot of fans. So you need to make sure you're making videos about products that are popular. And you can say bad things about it if you don't like the product, be honest, but you need to cover the popular products because when they're popular, that means that people will watch the video. Once you hit up the big booths, you can also make sure you do a sweep for some of the smaller booths that you maybe missed because you were prioritizing the bigger companies first. Next up, I go back to my hotel room after the show ends and dump all my footage from my cell phone, from my camera, and from my audio interface over to my computer. Then I make a backup of it over to an extra hard drive that I bring along with me. I always make sure my data is in 2 places at once before I ever format my SD cards and put it back in my camera and my audio interface. So I got my data in 2 places, and then I check over my footage. The reason why I check my footage is that I want to make sure that I didn't blow out the audio. You can accidentally have your gain set too high on your audio interface, and this beautiful guitar or keyboard or drum set sounds like trash because you didn't record it properly. The good news is there's a second day. You can actually go out there and fix your mistake. So look through all your footage, make sure it's not too shaky or out of focus or the audio's messed up, and get a little like a to-do list on your phone app. And then write out, I need this B-roll because I forgot to get it. I didn't get this photo that I needed of this product. I need to redo myself playing this instrument because the audio was messed up. Get a notes app of all the extra footage you need from the booths you already visited, and then go hit those up first thing on day 2. Now, moving ahead to day 2, once I get everything on my to-do list finished, what I'll do is I'll do a fine-tooth comb sweep throughout the entire convention center. And it's more like a series of buildings than one giant building. It sort of squirts around, and you can even not notice that there's a whole section, a whole like audio section or speaker section you had no idea existed. So make sure that you look at the map, or you just really spend time exploring and hit up every single room. The reason why I recommend going to areas that maybe don't relate to your industry is that a lot of times products will just be there that shouldn't be there. For example, there was a company called Carlsbro that has electronic drum sets in the speaker section in like audio world. The reason why this happens is that some companies are so large, they have a keyboard arm and they have a guitar pedal arm and they also have a drum set arm in the business. So they can't put themselves in the keyboard section and the drum section and that section all at once. They would have to buy 3 or 4 different booths to be everywhere all at once. So instead they have a central location. So very well, you could accidentally miss a vital company just because they weren't where you expected them to be. That's why you have to do a fine-tooth comb sweep over the entire convention center. Okay, so moving ahead, tip number 17 is make sure that you sort of plan out a video that can appeal to a broad audience. I usually do a video like the coolest drum sets at NAMM, or I do a video like I went to NAMM so you don't have to. The reason why I do a video like this is that I know it will appeal to a larger audience than just the people that subscribe to my YouTube channel. It won't be a kind of video I can replicate every single week, obviously, but it's a video that can, by itself, if I'm smart in how I edit it and how I shoot it, I can get 100,000 views. And it's not that difficult. It just takes time. It just takes planning. So make sure that you try to make something that could appeal to a wider audience while you're shooting 5 or 10 videos all at the same time. One of them should try to appeal to some kind of person that doesn't regularly watch your YouTube channel. Because I cover electronic drums, the very fact that I cover acoustic drums in addition to electronic drums increased the reach of my channel. Or because I did one video where I just walked with my phone on a gimbal throughout the entire of the convention center, and that sort of hit everybody. It hit the guitar players, it hit the bass players, the keyboardists, the vocal people, the DJ crowd. It hit everybody. So it had a wider audience and got more views than my average YouTube video. Okay, so my next tip is bring yourself some food in your backpack. I like to bring myself some protein bars. That way I don't have to buy food while I'm at the convention center. Because number one, the lines are very long, you don't have to wait. And number two, it's going to be overly expensive. So I just tied myself over with some snacks that I bring along with me, some protein bars, and that means that I can eat later at a whatever restaurant I feel like at nighttime, because it ends at like 5 or 6 o'clock. You still have plenty of time for the rest of the day. Okay, so the next tip is beware of small companies. A lot of times, companies that are literally 6 months old and they're working on some crazy innovative product, they will buy a booth at NAMM with the last dime that they could scratch together. And the fact of the matter is, just because they have a cool looking product doesn't mean your YouTube video will get any views covering it. Now, you definitely might. That's why you should cover everything in your industry, just because you want to cover everything. You want to cover your bases. And you never know. Maybe that company will blow up and a lot of people will be searching for your video. Just be aware that the boring big company who releases a boring big product, that will probably get more views because the company has more fans and they're going to spend ad dollars to make people aware of the product. So people will search for a review or a first impressions video via the YouTube search bar, and you want to make sure your video is in that top 5 suggested videos that pops up. So make sure that you cover the big companies first and also cover the small companies, but don't get your hopes up too high because these smaller companies, they don't always get as many views as you think they might just judged off of looking at them. And my final tip is specifically for people like me that like using prime lenses. You got to bring a zoom lens. Even if it's your crummy kit lens that came for free with your camera, make sure that you bring it because you can't choose where your camera goes a lot of times. The perfect camera angle a lot of times at NAMM will be right in the middle of where everybody is walking in these busy, crowded walking paths. So you can't put your camera right there. And that is the video. Thanks for watching.